The Celestial Helix Assembly glimmered like a suspended crown of metal and starlight, drifting in the void as though time itself held its breath around it. Inside, within its spiraling chambers, 200 species had gathered for the 847th convergence. The chamber was vast, designed to accommodate beings no larger than the thumb-sized Vixie all the way up to the towering Chromath elders, whose hulking frames grazed the upper balconies. Ambassador Elena Torres sat in the back section, as she always did, with the 6-member human delegation arranged neatly around her. Humanity had been part of the council for half a century, yet their place never changed, the farthest row behind the recently admitted species, where the chairs were narrow and the lighting a bit dimmer. The front tiers gleaming thrones sculpted, from alloys older than Earth's. Civilizations belonged to the great and ancient. Empires. Elena watched as the elder species arrived with the grandeur expected of them. The Vrax Imperium lumbered in first, their armored plates clattering like blades striking stone. They resembled armored mantises standing nearly 10 feet tall, their eyes glinting with predatory arrogance. Moments later, the luminant choir drifted in, beings made of harmonic energy, their bodies shimmering like liquid glass humming in perfect chords. Then the Chromath elders arrived, their leathery skin drawn tight over centuries of memory, their expressions serene. Humans in their plain gray suits looked almost comically ordinary among them. The session began when Warlord Thexor of the Vrax Imperium stomped forward, his battle-scarred form radiating triumph. His voice, amplified by the chamber acoustics, struck like a drum. "Council members," he proclaimed, "I bring a matter of urgency. We allow species to sit among us who offer nothing. No strength, no defense, no contributions of worth." His mandibles clicked sharply. "I speak of the humans." A ripple of amusement rolled across the hall. Several delegates leaned closer, eager for spectacle. "For 50 of your years they've sat silent," Thexor continued, pointing a clawed limb toward the back row. "No fleets of note, no impressive inventions, no territory anyone cares to seize. Why retain a species that has achieved nothing?" Laughter broke out, some harsh, some almost sympathetic. Even the luminant choir chimed with crystalline disapproval. Elena's team stiffened, though she rested a calming hand on Marcus's arm. The chamber quieted as Speaker Velshara, an ancient Chromath, asked formally, "Humanity may respond." Elena rose. Small among giants, she carried herself with unshakable composure. "Our answer," she said softly, "is this: we will wait." The room erupted in disbelief. Mockery echoed off the chamber walls as Elena sat down without another word. Her delegation resumed taking notes, their faces unreadable. Across the hall, hidden in the shadows of a side corridor, a young Pelthian observer named Kixtel watched with a puzzled frown. Something about the humans felt wrong, and not in the way everyone assumed. Kixtel couldn't shake the feeling that humanity wasn't waiting out of fear, but because they were waiting for something that none of the other species had noticed. The days that followed moved slowly across the Helix Assembly Station, though the tension simmering in its walkways made every hour feel stretched thin. The council dispersed into smaller committees, yet no room was free from whispers. The rumor, the humans were finished, spread faster than the station's internal broadcasts. Kixtel couldn't stop thinking about them. As a junior observer, their job was to learn protocol, observe species behavior, and absorb as much interstellar diplomacy as possible. But the humans, they behaved all wrong. Entire species on the brink of expulsion usually reacted with frantic lobbying, desperate speeches, and panic. Yet the human delegation continued their routines with unsettling normalcy. They attended sessions. They shared meals. They made small talk. Elena even spent 30 minutes explaining ancient Earth string instruments to a curious cluster of Vixie delegates. No trembling hands, no wild pleading, no collapsing under pressure. They weren't worried. Not even a little. Kixtel began tailing them carefully, discreetly, always from a distance. Their small fox-like body made hiding easy. They observed Elena and her team slipping into quiet corners for encrypted conversations, far beyond standard diplomatic security levels. The calls were unusually short, conducted in sharp, clipped whispers. Who were they speaking to? Other species noticed the humans' strange calm as well, but interpreted it differently. In a dim-lit bar near the station's residential rings, Kickstel overheard Vrax officers loudly mocking humanity. Denial, one warrior barked, antennae twitching with laughter. Weaklings always pretend nothing is wrong when the end approaches. Have you reviewed their military stats? Another asked, slamming down a drink. Barely 40 ships. Scatter those across a dozen systems and you have a constellation, not a fleet. Their ground forces? Another hissed. A handful of millions. Our training academies produce more warriors per cycle. The officers erupted into drunken chittering, but Kickstel felt none of their amusement. A knot of unease twisted in their stomach. Elsewhere, in the elder quarters where the air smelled of rare incense and memories, the ancient Cromath Velshara shared tea with Morgath, an even older scholar whose skin carried the faded patterns of centuries. You should address the younger species, Morgath urged quietly. They misinterpret silence. They won't listen, Velshara sighed. They see military might as the only measure of worth. Her eyes softened. But something troubles you more than that. Morgath nodded. I scanned the observation deck behind the human seats yesterday. Routine security check. The probe vanished. No explosion. No debris. Velshara's claws tightened around her teacup. Vanished? As though swallowed by the void. Meanwhile, the Crash Dominion conducted their own investigation. 12 spy drones slipped toward human borders. Every single one disappeared. They blamed malfunction. Sent a frigate next. It vanished too. Kickstel saw the pattern forming, and it terrified them. That night, making a decision that could end their career, Kickstel hid near the human quarters. Just past midnight, Elena Torres entered the observation lounge alone, overlooking the star-filled expanse. Kickstel edged closer, heart pounding. Elena lifted her communicator. This is Torres, report. The answer came in a voice no human throat could ever produce, deep and resonant like mountains shifting underwater. Standing by, Ambassador. 12 units surrounding the station. No detection. Kickstel froze. Breath caught. 12. What units? Elena continued calmly. Good. Tomorrow will decide everything. Kickstel realized with dawning horror that humanity was not alone, and whatever stood beside them was powerful enough to erase ships without leaving a trace. And tomorrow the galaxy would learn why the humans were never afraid. The morning of the vote arrived, and the Celestial Helix Assembly Hall felt different, heavier, as if the air itself braced for impact. Crowds filled every tier, even the balconies reserved for species who rarely attended. The expectation of spectacle always drew a crowd, and today's spectacle would be the humans' final humiliation. Kickstel found their usual observer seat, paws trembling. They had barely slept. The deep, impossible voice still echoed through their mind. They kept glancing toward the vast windows, half expecting something colossal to drift into view. The human delegation entered with the same quiet dignity they carried every cycle, Elena Torres in front. Her team behind her, calm, composed, almost serene. It unnerved Kickstel more than panic ever could. Warlord Thexor stood at the central podium already dressed in ceremonial plating, polished to a ruthless shine. His posture radiated triumph, as though the outcome was already secured. Speaker Velshara's gavel sent a booming echo across the chamber. We convene today to decide Earth's standing within this council. Warlord Thexor, you initiated this motion. You may begin. With a swaggering tilt of his head, Thexor activated a glowing data display. For 50 cycles, he began, the humans have consumed a seat at this esteemed table while contributing nothing. His voice dropped into a sneer. No great innovations. No fleets worth naming. A military strength so laughable that even pirates disregard them. The chart behind him illustrated Earth's modest forces. 40 ships, a small defense corps, scattered colonies. The hall rippled with murmurs of confirmation, some amused, others pitying. They sit quietly, Thexor concluded, because they have nothing to say. They vote without leading. They exist without significance. Removing them from the council is not cruelty, it is practicality. Applause erupted. Kickstel's fur bristled with dread. Speaker Velshara turned toward the back rows. Ambassador Torres, you requested a statement. Elena rose without haste and stepped into the central aisle. She appeared even smaller under the bright chamber lights, but her steps were steady and confident. When she reached the podium, she nodded respectfully. Warlord Thexor, she said softly, has spoken truthfully, at least about the numbers. Humanity's fleet is small, our military modest, our diplomats reserved. But the true measure of a species is not always found in what they proclaim. A holographic map lit up, revealing colored borders of all known empires. Elena highlighted a swath of blue, human space. We border 47 species, she said. More than anyone here. A hush fell. In 50 years, how many invasions have we endured? Silence. How many boundary skirmishes? More silence. How many wars? Not a sound. Elena's voice remained calm. 0. Delegates shifted uneasily. Even Thexor's armor ceased clattering. Considering our weak military, Elena continued, doesn't it seem unusual? We possess rich mining worlds, fertile systems, and trade corridors every empire desires. Yet no one has ever attempted to seize them. She switched the display again. Now a scrolling list of vessels, missing pirate fleets, raider ships, and military scouts from aggressive species. Over 200 ships have vanished near our borders. Not inside, near. No wreckage. No distress, simply gone. The hall stirred with confusion and fear. You assumed we were lucky, or insignificant. Elena's eyes swept across the room. But the real question isn't why humans haven't been attacked. She paused, letting the silence settle. It's what stands behind us. A shiver moved through the crowd as every gaze drifted toward the observation deck behind the human seats, toward the darkness none had ever bothered to study, because something was out there, and it was about to reveal itself. Elena tapped the podium controls, and the chamber's massive display shifted to a live feed of the space surrounding the station. At first, the monitors showed only the ordinary beauty of the void, dusty nebulae, distant stars, and the curve of the observation deck's exterior. Behind us, Elena said quietly, is the region of space our delegation has insisted on sitting closest to for 50 years. The area no one scans, the area you all assumed was empty. She lifted her communicator to her lips and spoke a single word. Unveil. At first nothing happened. Then the darkness behind the station shifted. A faint distortion, like a ripple in water, spread across the feed. Delegates leaned forward, squinting. The ripple grew, deepened, thickened. Space bending as something, vast, pressed through its cloak. Gasps tore through the chamber. Something the size of a small moon materialized into view. Its surface was a living tapestry of glimmering bioluminescent patterns, armor plates like ancient stone fused with sleek organic metal, and deep trenches glowing with power. It moved with the slow certainty of a continental shelf rising from an ocean. A single colossal eye opened, large enough to dwarf battleships, and gazed directly at the chamber. Screams echoed. Chairs toppled. Delegates scrambled back or froze in petrified awe. Then another shape shimmered into view beside it. And another. 12 in total, forming a protective ring around the station like giants encircling a campfire. The assembly hall erupted into panic. Some species bolted for the exits. Others clutched at their translators as if they might misinterpret the terror before them. Security officers rushed forward, unsure whether their weapons meant anything at all. A voice rolled through the chamber, deep, resonant, ancient. It didn't come from the speakers. It vibrated through the floor plates, the walls, their bones. Be still. The chamber fell silent as the eye on the largest being brightened. I am Elder Tideborn, the massive creature said, first among the Starbound Leviathans. We have listened to your mockery of our companions long enough. Velshara, trembling but composed, stood. You are sentient? A rumbling chuckle echoed. We have contemplated the cosmos since before your species discovered language. Elena stepped aside so the Leviathan's image dominated the hall. 200 years ago, she said. Human explorers found one of these beings, wounded, exhausted, drifting alone. Instead of attacking it, they offered help. A second Leviathan spoke, its voice melodic and haunting. Your ancestors hunted us, enslaved us, feared us, but the humans chose compassion. They asked nothing in return. We formed a pact, Elena continued, a pact of mutual guardianship. They protect our space. And by extension, all of you, delegates murmured, stunned. A luminant choir member floated forward. Why did you never reveal yourselves? Elena answered calmly. Because we knew how the galaxy would react. Fear would turn to greed, curiosity to weapons research. So we agreed to wait. She looked at Thexor. Until today, the Leviathan's eye narrowed. If humanity is expelled, Elder Tideborn said, the starbound Leviathans will depart as well, and all we have held back will come rushing in. A chilling realization swept through the chamber. If these colossal beings had been shielding them for decades, what horrors had they been shielding them from? The hall remained so quiet that even the hum of the station's life support system sounded thunderous. Delegates stared up at the displays as Elder Tideborn and the other Leviathans hovered in a silent constellation around the assembly hall. Warlord Thexor stood rigid, mandibles trembling. He accessed his fleet logs with shaky claws. His eyes widened. The scout vessels we sent toward human borders, he whispered. 15 of them. All vanished. A younger Leviathan answered gently. We relocated them before they endangered themselves, folded space around them and released them in neutral zones. The creature paused. Alive. Thexor nearly collapsed back into his seat. His armor seemed suddenly too heavy for him. You spared them. We do not kill without need, Elder Tideborn replied, least of all for the mistakes of frightened empires. Velshara's ancient gaze softened with grief and awe. The stories of my ancestors. The cosmic wardens who vanished after the Dark Wars. Were those legends truly about your kind? Some, Tideborn answered. We have intervened quietly for millennia, often unseen, often forgotten, but always present. One by one, delegates murmured their own recollections, near misses with asteroids, pirate fleets that vanished without explanation, spatial vortices that inexplicably sealed before devouring outposts. Events long written off as coincidence or luck now formed a pattern, one the galaxy had been too proud or too blind to see. Kixtel rose from their seat, trembling. Ambassador Torres, I must confess, I listened to your private conversation last night. I spied on you. I thought you were hiding some dangerous military secret. Their ears folded back in shame. I didn't realize the secret was kindness. Elena approached gently. Curiosity is nothing to apologize for, Kixtel. You didn't act out of hate. She smiled softly. Besides, the Leviathans sensed you long before you sensed them. Kixtel blinked, horrified. They knew I was there? Elder Tideborn chuckled. We know every heartbeat aboard this station. Speaker Velshara took the floor once more. This council owes humanity an apology and gratitude. I withdraw the motion to expel Earth. Do I hear a second? Dozens of voices shouted at once. Second! All in favor? A unanimous chorus filled the hall. Even species who had mocked the humans earlier now lifted their limbs in support. The decision was swift, absolute, but Velshara wasn't done. I propose Earth be granted a seat on the inner circle. Their wisdom and their friendships have safeguarded us all. Again, unanimous. Elena bowed her head. We accept. On one condition, that the starbound Leviathans be recognized as people, not as weapons. They deserve the same respect and rights we do. A third unanimous vote. History reshaped itself in a single cycle. As delegates filed out, some still shaking, some apologizing, some eager to meet the colossal beings who had saved them countless times, Kixtel lingered near the humans. Ambassador, after all this time, why sit in the back? Elena looked toward the vast dark beyond the observation deck. Because real strength doesn't need a spotlight, she said. And because our friends preferred the shadows, she smiled. Sometimes the quietest seat is the best place to watch the galaxy grow. Outside, the Leviathans shimmered, their cloaks reactivating one by one, fading into near invisibility. But now everyone knew they were there, and the galaxy would never again mistake silence for weakness. Far beyond the station's glow, in the deep black where starlight faded, thousands more Leviathans stirred, awakening to a new era, one where the galaxy finally knew their names. In the cycles following the revelation, the Helix Assembly transformed in ways no one could have predicted. The once dismissed humans now walked the station's corridors with a quiet respect, trailing behind them like a warm draft. Delegates who had never bothered to learn the human greeting began practicing awkward handshakes. Others left gifts, minerals, artworks, delicate glowing plants, outside the human quarters as apologies or offerings of alliance. But admiration wasn't universal. Some species were unsettled by the Leviathan's presence. To them, the galaxy felt too suddenly small, too suddenly vulnerable. Fear has a way of blooming even in the brightest rooms. Elena sensed this deepening unease. During a late-night meeting in the newly assigned inner circle chamber, representatives debated variations of the same questions. How powerful are the Leviathans really? Why did humans earn their protection? And what happens now? The Viridian scholar, a crystalline being whose voice chimed like chimes dropped in water, finally asked, Ambassador Torres, if humanity hadn't shown kindness 2 centuries ago, would the Leviathans have let the galaxy burn? Elena considered her answer. No, she said finally, but kindness gave them something they hadn't had for millennia. Trust. It opened a door, and once open they guarded more than just us. They guarded all of you. But what are they guarding us from? Asked a trembling voice. That question hung heavy in the chamber. Elena hesitated, because there was something she had not shared. Not everything about the Leviathan's vigilance was rooted in friendship. Humanity had learned a darker truth in their early years with the giants, one that the ambassador had never intended to reveal before the galaxy was ready. She touched her wrist communicator. A tiny icon, an ancient Leviathan glyph, pulsed faintly. Elder Tideborn's voice echoed privately through her implant. If you choose to tell them, be certain. Truth changes worlds, Ambassador. Elena rose slowly. Long before humans existed, she began, the Leviathans fought an enemy older than most stars, a species that doesn't live in our space but between it, feeding on gravitational tears and collapsing civilizations. A few delegates stiffened. They call them the Hollow. Elena's voice lowered. And according to Leviathan memory, the Hollow have begun to stir again. Gasps rippled through the chamber. Kickstel, seated as a junior observer beside the Pelthian representative, felt their fur rise in terror. Do you mean they're coming here? Elena didn't answer directly. She glanced toward the observation deck where a faint shimmer, barely visible, marked the presence of a watching Leviathan. They're searching, she said, testing the edges of the galaxy, and the only reason you haven't seen them yet is because our friends have been holding them back. The inner circle chamber fell silent as a cold realization seeped through everyone present. The Leviathans had not revealed themselves simply because humanity was threatened. They revealed themselves because the galaxy was. Far beyond the Helix station, beneath the folds of warped space, something vast shifted, something hungry, and a single hollow whisper echoed outward. Found you. The Helix Assembly entered a state of controlled panic after the meeting adjourned. Word spread faster than diplomats could contain it. Species that once dismissed humanity now whispered anxiously in their native tongues, glancing toward the windows as if expecting the darkness to peel open. Kickstel hurried through the corridors, their paws tapping rapidly against the polished floor. Every instinct in their small bodies screamed that something had shifted, something ancient, something predatory. And for the first time since joining the assembly, they felt truly afraid. The Leviathans were powerful, enormous, majestic. But if even they felt the need to hide the truth of the Hollow, what hope did anyone else have? Kickstel rounded a corner, then collided with Ambassador Torres. Sorry, Kickstel squeaked, stumbling back. Elena steadied them gently. You look like you've seen a ghost, she said softly. Kickstel swallowed. Ambassador, the Hollow. Are they coming now? Elena hesitated, a brief human moment of vulnerability, before her diplomatic calm returned. They're not here, she said. Not yet, but the Leviathans felt a disturbance along the galaxy's outer fold lines, like pressure on a sealed door. Kickstel shivered. Does the Council know everything? Not yet, Elena admitted. If they knew the full history, half the species here would flee to their homeworlds before dawn. She motioned for Kickstel to follow. They entered the observation deck, now emptied and dimmed for the night. The window stretched across the entire wall, revealing the serene abyss beyond. Except tonight, it wasn't serene. A faint pulse shimmered at the edge of visibility, like a heartbeat made of starlight and shadow. Elena noticed Kickstel's rigid posture. You see it? What is that? Elder Tideborn described it as a bruise on space, Elena murmured. A place where the hollow tested the barrier between their realm and ours. Kickstel's voice dropped to a whisper. Can they break through? A new voice answered. They will try. The deck vibrated with the resonance. A colossal shape drifted into partial view outside the window. Its camouflage intentionally weakened so the two of them could see it. A Leviathan. Not Elder Tideborn, but a younger one, sleeker, glowing faintly with cerulean pulses. Kickstel pressed a paw against the window in awe. Why show yourself? Because the galaxy must prepare, the Leviathan answered. Its voice was calmer than Tideborn's, melodic but threaded with concern, and because young minds, its gaze lowered to Kickstel, adapt faster than old empires. Elena frowned. What did you sense? The Leviathan's bioluminescent patterns flickered sharply. A breach. Kickstel's heart nearly stopped. Where? The Leviathan's massive eye reflected a distant star. No, not a star. Something expanding around it. Shadows blooming outward in impossible shapes. A frontier colony, it said. One belonging to a species that laughed at you only days ago. Elena's breath hitched. Which one? The Leviathan's reply was almost mournful. The Vrax Imperium. Across the galaxy, an entire Vrax outpost had gone silent. Its final transmission cut off mid-scream, and the darkness around it was moving. The emergency alarm blared across the Helix station scarcely an hour after Elena's meeting in the observation deck. A deep, crimson light pulsed through every corridor, signaling a threat not domestic, not internal, external. Delegates poured from their quarters in confusion. Armor clattered. Bioluminescent species flashed distress colors. The usually serene halls were now filled with frantic questions. Kickstel hurried behind Elena as she rushed toward the command amphitheater, where the Council's crisis summits were held. The enormous room was designed to seat every species representative in a staggering, multi-tiered circle. Tonight, nearly all of them arrived breathless. Speaker Velshara's aged voice tried to cut through the chaos. Please! Order! The alarm originated from the Vrax Imperium's frontier colony of Sindor 4. They transmitted a distress call, interrupted mid-sentence. Thexor, the proud warlord who only days ago had mocked humanity, stood in the central pit, his posture trembling, his claws twitching. Play it, he demanded hoarsely. Velshara gestured to the technicians. The recording began with static. Then a Vrax captain's voice crackled through, already strained with panic. Something tearing the sky. Shapes. No, not ships. Not anything. More static. Energy loss across the grid. Shields. Down. By the stars they're pulling the light apart. A screeching noise like metal twisting inside a storm flooded the speakers. Then a whisper. Low. Empty. Echoing. Found you. Delegates recoiled. Some clasped their appendages in terror. Others instinctively moved away from the center of the room. The recording ended abruptly. Silence swallowed the amphitheater. Thexor's mandibles clicked weakly. That voice? Was that? Elena answered quietly. The hollow. A shadow fell across the room as a massive shape drifted into view outside the transparent ceiling. A Leviathan, Elder Tideborn himself, hovered in full, uncloaked form. His voice resonated through the chamber. The breach is small, but it grows. A tremor of despair rippled across the delegates. We must attack, a Zix representative squeaked. We should evacuate Vrax space, another cried. No, seal the borders, shouted a Pelthian envoy. Elder Tideborn interrupted them with a low, shaking rumble. You cannot flee what exists between the layers of reality. You cannot attack what does not fully exist in yours. The room was plunged into a terrible stillness. Thexor lifted his head, voice raw. Elder Tideborn, can you save my people? The Leviathan's eye dimmed with sorrow. We can hold the breach for a time, but the hollow do not attack at random. Elena's stomach tightened. Then why Sindor 4? The Leviathan's next words fell like thunder. Because it sits along the oldest path between realms, one we sealed millennia ago. The Hollow are not merely awakening. They are remembering. The assembly erupted again, but Kickstel only felt a cold dread sink into their bones. If the Hollow were remembering, then somewhere out there, something else was being remembered with them. And far beyond the reach of any council sensor, in a place where darkness had no shape, a vast, unseen intelligence stirred, and whispered a single name the Leviathans had hoped never to hear again. The crisis amphitheater dimmed as Elder Tideborn's final words echoed across its vaulted ceiling. Delegates leaned forward, stricken, waiting for an explanation, none daring to speak. Elena felt her heartbeat quicken. She had seen Leviathans, calm in the face of collapsing nebulae, remain steady under pirate fire, even joke lightly while towing wounded ships across entire systems. But never, not once, had she sensed fear from one. Until now. Tideborn's enormous silhouette lowered closer to the station's viewport, his bioluminescent patterns dimming with unease. Speaker Velshara gathered her courage. Elder Tideborn. What name did the Hollow whisper? The Leviathan did not answer at first. His massive form became still as stone. When his voice finally came, it vibrated with ancient grief. They spoke the name of the first devourer. A cold ripple moved across the room. Thexor, trembling, stepped forward. What is that? Some hollow general? A creature? His voice cracked. A myth? Not a myth. Tideborn's gaze swept over the terrified delegates. A being older than our kind. A mind that feeds on collapsing stars. The one responsible for the Great Silence, an event your archaeologists found traces of, though none knew the cause. Elena stiffened. Humanity's earliest deep space probes had detected strange ruins, dead systems, hollowed planets, starfields where entire civilizations seemed to have vanished overnight. They had been labeled ancient catastrophes. But what if they weren't? Kickstel clutched the railing. The Great Silence. You mean those systems weren't destroyed by natural causes? Tideborn's bioluminescence darkened further. No. They were harvested. A wave of nausea swept through Kickstel. Even the bravest delegates whispered in dread. A luminant choir member flickered pale. Why target Sindor 4 first? Tideborn's voice lowered, as if speaking the truth aloud risked summoning it. Because the first devourer knows the scent of the Leviathans. It has hunted us across eras. The Hollow are merely its shadows extending beyond the cracks between realms. Elena felt a chill run through her. So Sindor 4 wasn't just unlucky? No, Tideborn rumbled. It was a warning directed at us. Thexor bowed his head, overwhelmed by the realization that his empire had become the first battlefield in a war. None of them understood. Suddenly, the lights in the amphitheater flickered. Then again, screens across the room scrambled with static. A technician shouted, "Something is interfering with our long-range sensors." A new sound filled the air, low hollow, like wind passing through a vast graveyard. Every Leviathan outside the station turned simultaneously toward the far side of the system, their patterns flaring in alarm. Kickstel's breath froze. "What is that?" they whispered. Elder Tideborn's voice resonated through every metal surface. A ripple in the fold, a small one. But close. Elena's stomach dropped. Close. How close? The technician stared in horror at his display. Something is opening. Less than 1 light minute away, just beyond the system's outer ring. Tideborn's bioluminescence blazed bright white, the Leviathan equivalent of fear. The first devourer never announces itself so near. It should be impossible. He paused, corrected himself. It was impossible. Outside the station, in the far reaches of the system, space itself began to fracture, and something vast pressed against the thinning barrier, eager to enter. Alarms blared through the Helix Assembly station as the first rift tore open in the outskirts of the system. Though small, barely the width of a frigate, the tear pulsed like a wound struggling to decide whether it wanted to heal or bleed. Delegates crowded around the amphitheater's main viewport as a live feed projected the anomaly, Lines of warped light spiraled outward, twisting the stars into impossible shapes. A thin darkness seeped from the tear, like ink escaping from a shattered bottle. Kickstel clutched Elena's sleeve. "Is that the hollow?" Elena shook her head slowly. "No, that's just the doorway." Outside, the Leviathans surged into formation. 12 titanic silhouettes aligned in a protective ring, bioluminescent patterns crackling like lightning across their bodies. Elder Tideborn moved to the front, his vast form blocking most of the live feed. His voice boomed through every comm channel. "Stand back. The rift is unstable." A Viridian scholar shimmered in fear. "Can you close it?" Tideborn hesitated. "We can slow it, but closing it fully will require a resonance we have not attempted in centuries." Elena stepped forward. "What resonance?" "A harmonic barrier." Tideborn's tone deepened. "It draws on every Leviathan in range, but if the Devourer senses it, it may accelerate the breach." Thexor slammed a claw against the railing. "So we do nothing? We just wait while this monster pushes into our space?" Tideborn's answer was hauntingly calm. "No, the Devourer never pushes first. It watches, a long pause. It waits to measure your fear." On the feed, the rift pulsed again, larger now. The station's gravity fluctuated for a moment, making several delegates stagger. Kickstel gasped. "It's growing." Technicians scrambled. Gravity distortion rising, 0.4%, 0.7% stars above. It's accelerating. Elena felt the fear inside her shift, not away, but into focus. "Grandfather Tideborn," she said, using the respectful human title. "What do you need from us?" The Leviathan turned slightly, his massive eye reflecting the assembly's distant lights. "Courage." The word resonated like a living drumbeat. Before anyone could respond, the rift expanded violently, doubling in diameter with a thunderous, soundless shockwave that rattled the station to its core. Through the widening tear, something moved. Not a creature. Not yet. A shadow. A silhouette so immense the stars behind it flickered out like dying embers. It had no form, no defined edges, only an outline of less than light. A hunger that pulled at the sensors with maddening contradictions. The Vrax warlord's voice broke. "That thing is staring at us." He wasn't wrong. The shadow had no eyes, but everyone in the chamber felt its attention. A pressure. A cold, rising awareness that made their blood thicken. Then, a whisper bled through the speakers, but not through any radio band the station recognized. "Not yet." Delegates screamed. Some collapsed. A luminant choir member's entire body flickered dangerously before stabilizing. Elena steadied herself. "What does it mean?" Tideborn's answer chilled the hall. "It is testing the barrier, judging your reactions. The first devourer always studies its prey before it feeds." The rift pulsed again, stronger, and far beyond the tear, deeper than any light could travel. A second shadow began to move, one even larger than the first. The chamber descended into a suffocating stillness as the second shadow emerged. At first it appeared only as a faint dimming behind the initial figure, like a deeper darkness rising from within the tear. But slowly, impossibly, it began to take shape. A ripple of pure dread washed across the delegates. Kickstel held onto Elena's arm so tightly their claws shook. "Ambassador, how many are there?" Elena didn't speak. Couldn't. Her breath caught at the sight, a mass so vast it swallowed starlight in waves, as though it carried a gravity field of fear. Tideborn's voice rumbled through the comm systems, lower, heavier, and unlike anything the assembly had heard from him before. "This is wrong." Speaker Velshara's claws clenched around her staff. "Elder Tideborn, what does it mean?" "The first devourer never sends more than one projection." A tremor ran through the Leviathan's patterns. "If there are two, it means it has found an anchor." The phrase struck the chamber like a blow. Anchor?" Thexor stammered. "Explain." Tideborn turned slightly, his ancient voice growing darker. "The hollow exist between layers of reality. The first devourer uses them to test and pry open weak points, but it rarely manifests more than a single echo." Another pause. "Unless something within our realm has given it a foothold." Elena felt a chill crawl up her spine. "You mean, someone helped it?" "No." Tideborn's voice deepened to a growl. "Something." As if on cue, the rift pulsed again. this time sending a shockwave of distorted gravity through the system. Lights flickered. The station groaned, metal straining under invisible pressure. A technician screamed. Sensors detect a resonance spike, originating not from the tear but from inside the system. Elena turned sharply. Where? The technician's fingers trembled over the controls. A signal, old, extremely old, broadcasting from one of the moons in the outer ring. It's activating something. Kickstel's ears flattened. Something like what? The feed shifted, focusing on the barren moon, silent, dust-covered, uninhabited, or so everyone thought. Lines of light, thin, perfectly straight, began spreading beneath the moon's surface like veins awakening. The patterns formed a symbol, one not seen in tens of thousands of years. Velshara gasped. That marking. I've seen it in ancient Chromath ruins. It predates our earliest star charts. Tideborne's light patterns flared in distress. It is the sigil of the Weavers of Absence. The hall erupted in confusion. Who? What are they? Another hollow tribe? Tideborne answered with a devastating calm. They were a civilization that tried to harness the Devourer's power, believing they could control Absence itself. They failed. The second shadow moved closer in the tier, pulsing as if responding to the moon's awakening. Elena whispered. So the Devourer didn't find us by chance. No, Tideborne replied. It was called. The tier expanded again, now a swirling vortex, and on the barren moon beneath the glowing sigil, something ancient began to stir, something that should never have been awakened. The glow beneath the moon's surface intensified until entire valleys blazed with ghostly white light. The sigil, now burning like a brand across the landscape, began to rotate, its lines shifting with mechanical precision despite the age of the ruin. Delegates watched in horror as the moon's crust cracked. Along the etched pathways, Elena felt the vibrations even through the station walls. That moon? It's not a moon at all. Tideborne's voice rumbled, each word resonating like thunder trapped in stone. Correct. It is a vault. A place the Leviathans helped seal long before the rise of your civilizations. Thexor staggered backward. A vault of the Devourer. No. Tideborne's glow dimmed. A vault of those who thought they could imprison it. On the live feed, the sigil spun faster. Dust rose in choking clouds. Giant slabs of crust shifted outward, revealing a cavernous interior lit by pulsating geometric shapes. Machinery so ancient and alien that even the Leviathans recoiled. Kickstel clung to the railing. What is it doing? Tideborne's bellow shook the amphitheater. It is amplifying the rift. If it completes activation, the first Devourer will break through fully. Panic erupted. Shouts, cries, frantic gestures toward evacuation routes, but Elena raised her voice sharply. Stop! Her words, small but piercing, cut through the chaos. We are not helpless, she said, stepping forward. If the Weavers built a mechanism to open this, then they must have built a way to close it. Velshara nodded weakly. If we could find the counter-frequency, we can, Elena said confidently. But not from here. Kickstel's eyes widened. Ambassador. You're not thinking? Yes, Elena answered. We're going to the moon. Delegates froze. Even Thexor stared in stunned disbelief. You would enter a vault older than most recorded history? The warlord rasped. Someone has to, Elena replied. Humans have a habit of stepping into dangerous places when everyone else steps back. Tideborne lowered his massive head toward the viewport. We will escort you. The vault will react to Leviathan presence, but if humans enter alone, it may permit access. Elena turned to her team. Prep the shuttle. Marcus answered without hesitation. Already on it. Within minutes, the human shuttle launched. Escorted by 3 colossal Leviathans whose cloaks remained partially lowered, vast guardians cutting a path through the fractured starlight. As they approached the moon, the vault's sigil flared in recognition, as if sensing something long awaited. The rift shuddered, the twin shadows moving faster now, pushing harder, hungrier. Elena keyed the comm. We're entering the vault's perimeter. Tideborne's final words echoed like a blessing and a warning. Find the Weaver's failsafe. Silence the sigil, or all worlds fall. The shuttle descended into the glowing canyon, swallowed by ancient light. And then, the signal cut to black.